I can't believe I'm getting Brendan Schaub news from Jim Cornette. So they talked about Brendan Schaub on Jim Cornette's show today. I'm going to play this and give you my thoughts on it. To give you a little background, they're still going off about that Thomas guy who runs Kast Media and how they're threatening to sue him because of the podcasting deal that they have. But Brendan Schaub's involved in this. We're going to get a corny and bopperverse, multiverse crossover or something. I don't know. But let's see what they had to say about Schaub and others.
This is, I think approximately, I got to check the emails, 2 weeks after I heard from Colin Thompson at Kast Media, who owes us a lot of money. 2 weeks after I heard from him that this was what he was doing. He was selling his company, and that because of the sale, he'll then have money to pay us back all that we're owed, and then we can figure out things from there. But we'll be whole at that point. Here's the press release. Live One to acquire certain assets of Kast Media. And there's some bullet points here. Proposed deal expected to add $10 million plus in annual revenues. Acquisition would bring in-house IP development and ownership to Live One and its subsidiaries, and is expected to include more than 25 weekly podcasts and 33 million monthly downloads. Assets expected to include top Kast Media shows, some more news, Brandon Schaub's Fighter and the Kid, The Opportunist, Lost in Panama, Vigilante, and Was It Real, and top-tier host talent, Ellen Marsh, Rabia Chaudhry. I don't know who these people are. I'm sorry if I'm these names wrong.
I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I've never heard any of this shit.
Whitney Cummings.
Okay.
Peabody Award recipient Mariana Atencio. You may remember her from MSNBC. And Audrina Partridge. Live One combined podcast network distribution would rise to over 340 episodes weekly and nearly 750 million verified downloads annually. Once again, they're putting out this press release for the market.
They're saying that they are acquiring certain assets of a company that owes everyone money and is going to go bankrupt by the owner's own words and admission unless this deal goes through.
By the way, the owner's attorney wrote that to us, so we have that in writing. Yes. It's basically, take this bad deal with Podcast One, or he's going bankrupt and you get nothing. That's the threat.
They're awful happy about acquiring a company that's losing money hand over fist, leaking like a fucking sieve, aren't they? How does that work?
Because they're not losing money. Kast Media should be profitable. We just don't know where all the money went. That business, the business of selling advertising for podcasts, if you take yourself away from the production end of it, which they haven't, which is part of the reason why it's a badly run company, that end of it should be a very lucrative business. I mean, I say that knowing numbers. It should be a very lucrative business. If a doctor's office is busy and they're billing nonstop and getting paid nonstop and they're losing money, maybe the doctor's taking off with the money. I used to work for doctors when I was like 20 years old, and I remember these billing problems. So there's that. But let's go to this press release.
So what you're saying is Live One shot a man while robbing his castle, but Colin Thompson took the money and ran.
I don't know, but let's go to this. Live One on NASDAQ is LVO. Announced today it has entered into a letter of intent.
And what is today, by the way? What's the date on that, just for people hearing it now?
May 23rd, 2023.
Okay.
Live One announced today has entered into a letter of intent to acquire certain assets of the Los Angeles-based podcast network, development, and production company, Kast Media, in an all-stock deal. No cash. That's insane, especially if you have to hold that stock for at least 2 years. That's crazy. If completed, the proposed acquisition is expected to increase annual consolidated revenue for Live One by over $10 million. Here's a quote from Colin Thompson, founder and CEO of Kast Media, and executive producer of Kast's owned narrative IP slate. Our goal is to entertain, inform, and inspire through our shows. And Live One has the infrastructure, reach, and operational excellence to take that mission to the next level. Live One's commitment to our premium original podcasts will allow us to expand IP development and production, and production to increase our original owned content slate. We look forward to completing the deal and working shoulder to shoulder with the impressive team at Live One. Let me stop for a second.
You're usually shoulder to shoulder with somebody when you're handcuffed to them.
Let me just say something right there. That's the problem. I mean, there's a lot of problems here, but after all of this, we're being told, again, what he's saying here, Live One's commitment to our premium programming will allow us. I'm staying on board. I'll still be in charge. The guy who fucked around with everyone's money will be in charge of this if anyone feels forced into taking this awful deal just to try to get some of your money. How is this not completely... Every time I describe any angle of it, it's just so fucking illegal. How is any of this possible? Well, here's a quote from Live One CEO and Chairman Robert Ellen.
He's the one I wanted to hear from.
Live One has long admired Kast Media's roster of top-notch podcast programming, their host talent, and their development in IP. Through this collaboration with Colin and his team, we expect to deliver a slate of original programming with an eye towards second window TV. The letter of
What?
What? They want to take Colin's podcast.
My TV doesn't have any windows in it. It doesn't even have a fucking door.
They want to develop television programming for Colin's podcast content, it sounds.
He's got the perfect face for radio, though.
The letter of intent with Kast Media is non-binding, and the contemplated acquisition is subject to execution of definitive documentation with Kast Media, completion of due diligence, settlement of Kast Media's outstanding obligations, obtaining applicable approvals and consents, and other customary closing conditions.
How much due diligence do they need to do when you can Google this motherfucker and see what he's into?
There could be no assurance.
But you can Google them and see what they're into, though, too, can't you?
That's right. There could be no assurance that the proposed acquisition will be completed and or within the anticipated timeline.
Okay, so, first of all, I love how Jim Cornette just said, I don't know who any of those people are. Come on, Jim, how many chicks you fuck? Yeah. Okay, so, to reiterate what they were all talking about there, Kast Media owes Jim Cornette money. However, Jim Cornette just did an advertising deal with them, unlike the Fighter and the Kid podcast and other podcasts that signed a deal with Kast Media for them to own those podcasts. So right now, Brendan Schaub does not own the Fighter and the Kid podcast. He's in a deal with Kast Media. Hence, Mark Harley reported Brendan Schaub said his agent stole $1.4 million from him. Hence, Mark Harley updating that story, saying he said agent, but he didn't say CAA. I think he meant Kast Media. So Kast Media owes Schaub $1.4 million. They owe Jim Cornette money. They owe a whole bunch of other people money. And in order to get that money to pay off these people, they have to sell to Live One, which I think. So now the thing is that deal going to go through? That's what they were talking about when Live One does their due diligence and realizes that Colin Thompson dude is a shiesty guy. Dicey. So I just hope Jim Cornette looks into Brendan Schaub and we get Brendan Schaub trashings on Jim Cornette's show. That would be the greatest thing ever. It would be the funniest thing ever. But I mean, so it seems that Bappa really is out. I don't know if it's 1.4 million, because that statement they read, they were even saying it doesn't make sense. If they're making money hand over fist over there, then why can't they pay the guys? I guess this Colin Thompson guy really is just ripping off the money. But if that's the case, why would Live One get into a deal with them to buy all those podcasts? And Brendan Schaub's podcast is completely dead. So it's not like that podcast is bringing in anything. So I don't know. This whole thing is very, very interesting. And I'm glad we got to find out about it from the Jim Cornette thing, who he's just worried about himself and his money. Like you said, he has no idea who Brendan Schaub or any of the other podcast people on there are. He just did an advertising deal, and they got screwed on an advertising deal. God only knows how bad Kast Media screwed the dudes who actually did production deals with them and what they were promised and stuff. Like, I'm pretty sure they were promised, like that whole when Corny made that joke about the windows and the TV. I'm pretty sure, oh, yeah, sign with us. You make a bunch of money. We might put you on TV too, regular actual TV. Like, that's probably never going to happen. I think podcasting right now is kind of hitting like an iceberg in a sense, meaning all these companies came in. Joe Budden has talked about this. All these companies came in, threw a bunch of money at these podcasters, and now they're looking around, and these podcasts aren't really bringing in the money that they thought. I think that's happening generally in podcasting, where, of course, you're always going to have your Rogans at the top, and now I think Theo Vaughn is number 2, but your, mainstream podcast, who, like, let's say they threw $20 million at you, those companies are now rethinking those deals. Like, I think SiriusXM is so unhappy with that Rory and Maul deal and their business plans of switching up. But who knows? But, yeah, I'm just Jim Cornette. Brendan Schaub was talked about on the Jim Cornette show, and they said his name completely wrong. Hilarious. I've only heard one other person screw up Brendan Schaub's name. That was his lawyer. His lawyer didn't even know his name. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.